Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, last week we watched Michigan demolish Wisconsin and thought, man, oh man, Michigan has found its answers. They are on the way to very big things. And then Wisconsin lost 37-0 to Iowa, and Michigan went out west, and it was a real come out to the coast. We'll have some laughs, and it ended better, I guess, for John McClain than it did for Sharon Moore. But it was there was some got to get some more FBI guys going on for Michigan at a few times during that game.
Yeah, following that 24-10 blowout of Wisconsin a week ago, they went into to USC and lost 31-13 in a game that was not necessarily as close as it sounded. Although I will say, in terms of how it sounded, we listened to the game on the drive back from Illinois, and it never really sounded close. And so this is an opportunity to watch it firsthand and have our eyeballs confirm what our ears had heard throughout this whole thing. USC rushes for 224 yards. They throw for 265 yards. And they had the Michigan defense on the ropes throughout the entire game. And 2 turnovers in the red zone for USC. One forced on a fumble, the other just a bad interception thrown by quarterback Jaden Mayava. Kept this from being really ugly. Instead, it was just way ugly. And throughout all of this time, I'm watching this Michigan defense, and they looked concerned and I'd say scared about the USC passing attack throughout this whole game.
Well, I think this is a game where Lincoln Riley has, for long stretches of his career, had this reputation as an offensive genius, and not generally for long stretches of that actually looked like an offensive genius. It's, he's sort of had some really talented players and done some exciting things, but then there's also long stretches where it's like, why does everyone say these incredible things about this guy again? And he took Wink Martindale and stuffed him in a trash can for 3 hours on Saturday night. That was very much a Wink Martindale. I don't know if he has his PhD, Tony, but I would call him Dr. Blitz, maybe, for how often he likes to bring pressure. I don't know if that nickname's taken in college football history. Maybe it is. I don't know. But he loves to bring pressure, and boy, did Lincoln Riley sniff that out, and boy, did USA use the screen game and getting the ball out, just getting the ball out quick in general. And it was just, sometimes you feel like, oh boy, this team really, the defense really just, they always have someone in the right position. It was constantly Michigan guys taking 3 steps forward and then turning and running back. Oh no, the ball's going over my head. It was just a lot of that. And, you have to, we saw a couple weeks ago at Washington, Ryan Walters, who is known as man. I'm going to play man. They played a ton of zone against Ohio State because they adjusted to the fact that they didn't have corners that could hold up in man against Ohio State. So, okay, I know that's what you like to do, but you don't always get to do what you want to do. Wink Martindale felt like he didn't really adjust that game plan as much, and that really, really caught up with Michigan.
Yeah, they were throwing just quick sideline screens to running backs and tight end screens over the middle. Like they were doing, Jaden Mayava finished 25 of 32. He was 15 of 17 on passes, like 4 yards and less downfield. And that was just a lot of those short, quick screens. And whether it's to the blitz side or not, they were very effective all game long. And it did a great job of neutralizing the pass rush. 0 sacks in the game for Michigan. I believe they only had 5 tackles for loss overall. We've seen the pass rush from Jayshon Barham, over the course of the season as he's played edge. He's a guy that was to be concerned with, and no sacks in this one. He did have a tackle for loss, but they used him in terms of like running at him, throwing around him, just like they were aware where he was, and they went after him in the running game, and that worked. And overall, like you said, there was nothing that Wink Martindale could do other than hope for some bad decisions by Mayava, and they got one, but it wasn't nearly enough. As the first note I had here is just there's so many screens, as you said, and they were attacking Jimmy Rolder in the passing game. They got after Jair Hill, cornerback, in the passing game. There's at one point they had Makai Lemon in the slot against Brandon Hillman, which is a terrible matchup for Michigan in terms of coverage. So whatever they wanted to do, they were able to do it. And it wasn't just the screen game, because they were able to run the ball extremely well, 224 yards, as I said. They had like a 49-yarder, then another 40-yarder. Then those are both by King Miller, who rushed for 158 yards on 18 carries. And they had a 29-yarder from Brian Jackson, a touchdown late in the game. One of the issues I'm going to take, though, was the first King Miller touchdown run. It was like 3rd and 26, Tom. And it wasn't a touchdown. It was a 49-yarder or so. But the way that the radio made it sound like is that it was just like a leverage issue, and he just busted out like the left side, and there are no defenders there. This is a run right up the middle, and he never got within like 5 yards, never went beyond like 5 yards of the hash. He was just weaving in and out of defenders. It made it sound like it was a leverage break, and it was just a thing where ran right up the middle, and there's a couple of guys there, but he made a miss, and he just kept on going.
Yeah, Brandon Hillman was one of the guys there and missed a tackle on that one. He did not have a good game. He is known as a big hitter, but when it came, hey, gotta wrap these guys up and or just get them on the ground one way or the other, he had at least 3 that I went, ooh, boy, that was not good. He didn't have a good game. The defense on the whole didn't have a good game. You talked about some of the matchup issues that they created. The touchdown pass to Makai Lemon, they got him, they put him in the slot, and they got him on Jaden Sanders, who's a true freshman. And Sanders actually had pretty good coverage, but you're still looking at, this is one of the best receivers in the Big Ten, if not the country, and you can just scheme him up where he's on a true freshman in the red zone. That is a W before the ball gets snapped. So, yeah, like that kind of goes back into Lincoln Riley just kind of having Wink Martindale kind of pegged during the course of the game. There was let's see. I've got so many different places to go. Let's Tony. Let's take things in a positive direction for a minute. We talked last week about Andrew Marsh turning into like, oh boy, this guy is really turning into something. True freshman wide receiver out of Texas. He is really turning into something. I wrote down Andrew Marsh is really turning into a weapon. And then later in the game, he had a 69-yard touchdown reception. Like after that, which kind of tells you exactly how good he is and how good he was on Saturday night. He finished with 8 catches for 138 yards and a touchdown, 9 targets, 8 catches. He is on a night when Bryce Underwood, and we'll get to Bryce Underwood in a little bit, on a night when Bryce Underwood was really not great. He 8 catches on 9 targets for 138 yards for Andrew Marsh, and 7 catches on 16 targets for, I can do math, 68 yards, 69 yards. So, that's if it's 138 yards on 9 targets and it's, less than 70 yards on 18 targets, that tells you, they've got one guy and they don't have anyone else. It was kind of a disappointing day for Donovan McCulley. Only 3 catches, 39 yards, did have a touchdown. But man, oh man, Andrew Marsh, he feels like they have definitely found something there.
Yeah, I think I said to you while we were listening to it during the game is that they found their finally like Mario Manningham, basically not the biggest guy. He's 6 foot 190 or whatever, and kind of like Mario Manningham, excelled early on and then just kept getting better and better. And maybe he can become that, because it's been a long time since they've had an elite guy, and I don't know that he's going to get there, although the last 2 weeks he's had, I think, 12 catches for about 218 yards and has proven that I need the ball, I need to be playing, I need to be involved, and he's responded very, very well. Donovan McCulley, I think, is more of a compliment than a wide receiver 1, so it would be very nice for Michigan if they could get a wide receiver 1 to emerge, although asking a freshman to do that, you never know what you're going to get from week to week. And maybe he's advanced and he can do that. It's a rare true freshman wide receiver that can be a wide receiver number 1 of a playoff team, as we know. But maybe he can be that guy. Certainly the last 2 weeks, there's no reason to think that he won't continue to get better. It's just the fact that he's a true freshman being thrown to by a true freshman, and maybe you should expect some ups and downs from there, and then find some other people. They're not even thrown to the tight ends anymore, which is crazy. And I don't know if this is a Bryce Underwood thing. I don't know if this is just an offensive design thing, lack of talent. Marlon Klein was pretty good last year, and he's not been, he's been banged up some this year, but even when healthy, he's not really been a target. And I was listening to a Michigan podcast yesterday with a former player, and he's like, I understand that they get, some good, effort and sportsmanship and all of these things from Samaj Morgan. Like he's a good trooper, but you got to get him off the field. Like these are Michigan players, former Michigan players saying, I can't take it with Samaj Morgan anymore. And every throw, every touch for Samaj Morgan is a win for the defense. And that doesn't mean that it's always going to be a stop. It just means like it's limited in where it's going to go.
Yeah, and he had his absolute classic Samaj Morgan game where he had a reception right off the start. Might have been on the first drive of the game or first or second drive of the game. And then that was it. 1 catch, 7 yards. That was it. Just clock out for the day, 7 minutes into the game on the game clock. I don't know what it is, but he's always in that like initial script, and then they just sort of forget about him after that. I think we can talk now about Bryce Underwood. This was a game where he looked like a true freshman on the road in a little bit of a, not the most hostile environment. There were plenty of Michigan fans there, but true freshman on the road just didn't look right, didn't look comfortable. You see the talent, but the consistency is just not there yet. He had one where didn't recognize a blitz off the edge, got blindsided, took a big sack, knocked him out of field goal range. He'll have a couple inaccurate throws and then just throw an absolute laser beam. I mean, he had a great throw over the middle to Andrew Marsh at one point, but the consistency, it's not there yet. It's going to come. You would assume it's going to come at some point, but it's not there yet. And he has done a couple. He did a couple of his things that we talk about every single week. He's running and he takes a way bigger hit than he needs to take. Like he took a big hit, kind of got up limping. He had like 2 big defenders hit him and they kind of fell awkwardly on his lower leg. If Bryce Underwood gets hurt, this Michigan team is like cooked. Like if you had any question about Jaden Davis, the backup coming in, it was like, why isn't this guy playing? Oh, okay, I see. Like it took 3 snaps, and it was, I think he had, I got to find the right tab now. He had 0 for 2 with an interception, and also took a sack. And like, you can see why Bryce Underwood is playing every snap. He cannot take hits like that. And he also needs to stop predetermining throws, because there was one where he had a receiver underneath to a receiver open somewhere, but it was like the old Kyle Orton or Rex Grossman, like, I'm going deep and I'm going to throw it deep to Donovan McCulley, and he made that decision before the ball was snapped. He might have made that decision before he came out of the huddle, and throws it deep into double coverage, and of course it's incomplete. Mm-hmm. You get 1 or 2 of those a game from him, and then he makes a phenomenal throw to Andrew Marsh for a touchdown, and then there's a wide open receiver on the 2-pointer, and he misses that throw. And it's just, the accuracy's not there, the decision making's not there. All of this stuff is, yeah, he's a true freshman. We get it, like 100%. This is all going to come eventually, but it really would have been helpful for Michigan if it had happened before Saturday, and it very much did not. You see it, it's there, but it's not there nearly consistently enough.
Yeah, he struggled against the blitz, and he had some different arm angles throughout the course of the game with varying effectiveness in terms of accuracy. He was 15 of 24 for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, sacked twice, ran the ball 5 times for a loss of 4 yards overall. And maybe this is who he is on the road until he's not. Now, this is a better game than he played on the road previously, and Oklahoma, and that was a better defense as well. So that makes sense. But an opportunity for him to learn and move on. He wasn't bad, but he didn't do anything to win the game. This was not the game that he's going to lose for them that we talked about with the freshman quarterback losing you a game. That has not happened yet, so just keep that in mind. In terms of losing, they did lose Justice Haynes, running back, who had some rib or something got hit and had to take himself out. So he finished with 10 carries, 51 yards. Jordan Marshall, 14 carries for 68 yards. Tom, the thing that I wrote down here is this is Michigan's running game without the home runs from Justice Haynes. This is what you get. And it was like, it's okay. But when you don't have that explosion, it certainly takes a lot longer to get where you're going. 31 for 109, Ohio State might kill for that right now to be able to do that themselves, and also kill to have hold Michigan to 31 for 109. But they need to get Justice Haynes back. I assume it didn't look like there's anything like long term, but when you've got your long carry of the day is 13 yards, it's a pretty good job by the defense.
Yeah, I watched the game and I thought it just doesn't. The running game just doesn't look the same with Marshall in there as with Haynes in there, and it just feels like they're just not running the ball nearly as effectively. And then you look at the stats at the end of the game, and Haynes is 10 for 55 yards, averaging 5.1 with a long of 13, and Marshall is 14 for 69 for 4.9 yards and a long of 13. So 0.2 of a yard and exactly the same long run of the day. So I don't know, I don't know if that's just I have the old Justice Haynes where he's, previous games where he's ripped off these long ones in my head or what, but it doesn't feel like quite as much of a running threat. And Underwood was really not much of a running threat in this game either. He finished with -4 yards, which is, includes sacks. He had the one nice run where he did take a big hit. I do wonder if they're kind of looking at him and using his legs and saying like, if you're not going to get down or you're not going to get out of bounds, you're not going to call too many design runs, because I'm sure they have figured out the same thing that we figured out, which is if he's hurt, that is a no good, very bad time for them for that game and for the whole season.
Yeah, Bryce Underwood, 2 of 7 on passes, 15 yards or more downfield. Not really going to get it done. Back to the Michigan defense. They gave up 220, which is something you can't always say. So as I said, 224 yards rushing, 265 yards passing. Tom, is this how Ohio State needs to do it against Michigan when they play? Because USC did not. I didn't count them up, but I think they ran more 21 than 12 personnel. They had 2 backs out there quite a bit. They were more spread out. The Michigan defense was spread out, not widely, but this was not 8 guys in the box, and USC was able to run the ball, able to throw the ball. Michigan's secondary was dropping their corners and nickel, dropping way back, even on like 3rd and 3 or 4. The defenders are 8-9 yards off at times because they're just so concerned. So you lack this confidence in your corners and your nickel, and sometimes Brandon Hillman is defending a slot. I know you got to run the ball to win the game, Tom, but if you can protect your quarterback, we've said it all season long, you can throw on these guys.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. The Wink Martindale thing has always been getting pressure, getting the ball out. Then your corners don't have to defend very long. If you don't have to cover for 3.5 seconds, that means that covers for a multitude of sins on the back end of the defense. When you can't do that, then it does feel a little bit like you maybe have found something that might help you go after Michigan a little bit. And it's a relatively simple thing. And Illinois kind of found something like that against the Ohio State defense where they ran tempo. And, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to be able to run tempo and score touchdowns against the Ohio State defense, but you can see, okay, they don't handle this particularly well. And, Jayshon Barham, you didn't hear his name very much. You maybe heard it a couple times, but, compare that to the Nebraska game where Dylan Raiola was sitting back in the pocket and holding the ball forever. And you heard Jayshon Barham's name enough that it's like, are they going to put him in the College Football Hall of Fame by halftime? And So, it does feel like that's a little bit of an idea in terms of what you might want to do. I I'm not a huge believer in the Ohio State running game this year, so I don't know if they're going to be able to do what USC did, but USC did that with their third running back, King Miller. Their top two guys are both hurt. He comes in and 18 carries, 159 yards, and a touchdown. He was running. He had the 3rd and 26 that you mentioned for 49 yards, and then had a touchdown a play or two later, and then another long one on the first play of the next drive. And I'm like looking up, what was Barry Sanders' single season record? It was 26-28. King Miller did not get there, but he did average over 8 yards per carry on 8.8 yards per carry on 18 rushes. So, if Ohio State can do that, and I do not expect that they will, but if Ohio State can do that, I would say that would bode pretty well for their chances of winning in Ann Arbor this year.
Yeah. The Trojans rushed for 126 yards the week before, or the game before, in the loss to Illinois, 3.7 yards per carry. Go for 6.2 in this one. And yes, they rushed, there's about 120 of that came on 3 carries, but that's a plural amount of carries. It's not just one rando fluke carry. They were doing a good job. And so there are, there's there for anybody with a good offense or a very good offense that you can move the ball against Michigan. And really, when I say it starts with pass rush, we've not seen really TJ Guy or Derek Moore do much of late. And I say of late, meaning like the last 3 or 4 games. They've been pretty quiet. TJ Guy plays less and less now. The Barham's on the side, on the edge there. But when you look at USC's drive chart, they punted just twice, and their second punt was their only 3 and out. That was with 3 minutes to go. They got the ball back in the fourth quarter. So you run the ball into a wall 3 times and punt, and the other punt was in the second quarter after a 7-play drive. And so they had touchdown, fumble at the Michigan 8, punt after a 7-play drive, touchdown, interception at the Michigan 15, field goal, touchdown. Then they finally went 3 and out, and they were in control throughout this. And I'm not going to say you could do this or you could do that, but it's not a stretch to give 14 more points to USC, and then it really looks bad. And I'm not even going to try to take the Andrew Marsh busted coverage off the scoreboard for Michigan. But 31-13, a great 18-point road, 18-point win in the Big Ten. Ohio State did the same thing. You take those all day long, but this could have been much worse. And Michigan needs to figure some things out other than just, once the schedule gets easier, we'll look better, because that's not an answer.
Well, isn't it? I mean, we just did a show looking at the Big Ten championship game race, and it's entirely possible, bordering on likely, that Michigan, regardless of all the stuff we said, is going to come into the Ohio State game with 2 losses overall and 1 loss in conference, and potentially be able to beat Ohio State and get to the Big Ten title game on a tiebreaker. Because there's a bunch of other teams that are going to lose. Right now there's 9 teams with 1 loss. Indiana is almost certainly running the table and getting into Indianapolis. And Ohio State is the only other team without a conference loss. And if Michigan beats Ohio State, Michigan runs the table and beats Ohio State, and those are the only 2 teams with 1 loss, Michigan's going to the Big Ten championship game. So, yeah, and at that point, we'll see how that goes. I don't know that I love Michigan, the matchup for Michigan against this Indiana team, but this is a team that is not in its final form right now. I mean, they got Gio Hottie back on the offensive line, which was that's a good thing for Michigan. It's going to take a little while probably to get back up to full speed, and I do still have some questions about the line, but Bryce Underwood is going to get better between now and the end of the season. If he can stay healthy, he's going to get better between now and the end of the season, because, as I said, you see the flashes. You can tell there's not anything with him where you're looking at him, even when he's making bad plays or bad decisions, you never look at him and go, I don't know what the evaluator saw with him. You can see it. It's not there consistently yet because he's a true freshman, and that's what true freshmen look like. But you can tell it's in there. It's going to be better as the season goes along, as he moves along through the season. he's going to be a better player later on in the year. Just think back to true freshman quarterbacks at Ohio State over the years. Terrell Pryor in 2008, it was almost a non-functional offense at the start of the year, and by the time they got to the Michigan game in 2008, they dropped 42 points on them. And 2011, Braxton Miller, I mean, that was a disaster of an offense for huge chunks of the season. And then they get up to Ann Arbor and what was that game, 40-34 or something like that. And Braxton Miller misses an open receiver on what could have been a game-winning touchdown pass at the end of that game. So if the talent is there, it's going to show up more and more and more. And by the time you get to the Ohio State game for Michigan, you're not a freshman anymore. That's one of those great truisms that you hear from coaches all the time. By the time you get to November, you're not a freshman anymore. Bryce Underwood will not be a freshman at that point. He's still kind of working through stuff. But with the way the schedule sets up, he has the opportunity to now, you can make some mistakes. You can do some more things. You can push things a little bit more, try things, learn what works, what doesn't, with a little bit more of a margin for error moving forward, because the schedule for the next month or so is not robust.
Yeah, and the Washington game will be the last big test. We'll see what happens with Michigan State. Rivalry games are what they are, as Michigan certainly knows. I don't want to spend too much time on this, Tom, but Michigan fans some are ready to fire Sharon Moore, and that's not a surprise given that fans are always ready to fire their head coach. I did see some conspiracy theories from our guy Ron James on Twitter, who captured a Michigan call-in show podcast talking about some guy called in and was like, "What's Kirk Herbstreit's kid doing on Michigan right now?" It seems like teams know what we're going to be running, and they know what we're doing, and how are we supposed to operate against this? And then I got thinking, well, what is Herbstreit's kid doing on this team? And now that you can't steal signs anymore, is this another way that Ohio State's cheating? And then I backed away from the computer, Tom, because that was some white-hot radiation coming from that. And I just thought you might like to know that there are some people out there on the internet who have some unique ways of thinking.
I didn't know Art Bell had a Michigan podcast. That's really interesting. Which Herbstreit kid is this? Is this Rico? I forget which Herbstreit kid this is. No, it's Rico. I think that's probably not the core issue that Michigan has right now. The secret spies from Ohio State and all that. Also, I've been reliably informed that knowing what's coming doesn't actually do anything because you have to stop it. I think we've established that over the last few years. As far as Sharon Moore goes, what are you firing him for? I think everyone could have told you, like, yeah, this is not going to be a national championship contender this year with a true freshman starting quarterback. Like this, if this is a surprise to you, I would encourage you to go back and look at the history of teams playing true freshman starting quarterbacks over college football history, because they don't generally look like absolute unstoppable juggernauts for the full 12 games of the regular season and then beyond. Like this is exactly what a true freshman, your best player on offense is probably your true freshman quarterback. If it's not your, running back, Justice Haynes, maybe you could make an argument for him, but the other one is your true freshman wide receiver, Andrew Marsh. And so you've got two true freshmen among your three best, probably offensive players. The offensive line is fine, but it's not amazing. And this is a team that this is what this is going to look like against better defenses. This is a substantially better offense than it was last year. And there's still a lot of learning curve going. You brought in Sharon Moore as your internal hire. He had no previous head coaching experience. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him there as well. And I will remind you, he's missed a bunch of time this year. So the internal machinations and operations of the thing have been a little wonky this year. So yeah, I'm sure everyone wants to fire their coach immediately. Curt Cignetti is the only guy with any job security in America right now. Did you see Ohio State fail to score in the red zone? I mean, it is just Ryan Day any day now. Out on the soup kitchen line, it's going to happen any day now. But no, Sharon Moore, like this is a guy who, if you're going to hire him, you got to give him a couple of years. Like you don't know. It's a little like Jake Diebler for Ohio State basketball. You're giving a guy who's a complete unknown, not a complete unknown, but he was an assistant in your program, but he's never run a program before, and you need to be a little bit patient. You can't hire a new guy and say like, well, no, if he doesn't do it now, he's never going to do it. He is a year and a half into his career as a Michigan head coach, and the results have been broadly in line with exactly what Michigan has been for the vast majority of the last 30 years. Like it's the 2021 to 2023 stretch. That is the enormous outlier in terms of what Michigan has been this century. So why are you surprised that now they're falling much more in historical line with a true freshman starting quarterback? This is what that looks like. I don't know why anyone would be surprised by that.
Yeah, you may want to aspire to be that 21 to 23, but you haven't been that since the 1921 to 23. So the 100 years between those is more of what you are, and certainly the last 30 years or 20 years is more of what Michigan is. So it's nice to maybe set that as a target, but those can't be your expectations. Now, we're saying Michigan could go into the Ohio State game with one loss, and that's partly a product of their schedule, but it is just there's still a chance here for Michigan, as we know, but there are still also issues. But has some youth on it, and Sharon Moore is part of that youth as well. So, and Tom, like you said, you can't hold him accountable. He's been busy serving suspensions. Great point. So that will do it. If you could hit the thumbs up on the YouTube, if you're watching, we'd appreciate that. If you're listening, a 5-star rating and review is always welcome. And of course, continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up, say hello to us there. We'd appreciate seeing you there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.